Okay, good. Anyways, guys, let's do actually this week's parsha. Please forgive me for my voice. I know my voice is very, very annoying, but I started losing it last week, and it's not getting better as fast as I wish. So I sound like a frog. Please forgive me for that. Doesn't seem to be too good. I hope it's not too annoying. But one of the things we're going to discuss, this week's portion talks about. It's called parsha of Tazria. Tazria literally means when you get pregnant. If a lady gets pregnant, gives birth to a son or to a daughter, there are many laws of impurity when they should become pure. The name of the parsha is Tazria, but most of the parsha talks about a certain spiritual disease, which is called tzarat or leprosy. This leprosy is not really a good translation. It's not a leprosy of today. It was actually a godly disease. In the olden days, when people were in a much higher level, if somebody slandered or he said lashon hara, as we say, spoke bad about another person, the first thing that would happen is that the walls of his house would change the color to very dark green or dark red. And then they had to bring the priest, the Kohen, and he would check it out. If, let's say, it was diagnosed as leprosy, because again, it's the wrong translation. I'm going to call it sarat, the Hebrew word. So then they had to cut these stones, put new stones. If it came back, that to destroy the entire house. But if the guy repented and he didn't say bad about others, so then it would get healed. If he continued, it would go on his clothes or on the bedding of his house. If he still continued saying lashon hara, then he would find a white spot. The traditional one is a white spot on his skin, and then two of the hairs would turn white too, from whatever color they were, black or blonde, whatever it was. So then this guy was really terribly punished for it. He was completely impure. It was the biggest impurity. He would walk into a house, the entire house became impure, and he had to be isolated outside of the Jewish camp for himself until the leprosy would go away. And then the priest would go back and look at him and say, "You healed, you're allowed to come back." He had to do a lot of procedures after that to get a full purity. But again, this is the worst type of impurity, because let's say if I touch a dead person, I become impure. I'm allowed to sit next to a guy that went to a cemetery. I don't have to be in isolation. But when somebody spoke lashon hara, he couldn't even sit with somebody else. He had to be isolated. And the reason is very simple. If he's going to sit with another person and they're both a bunch of gossipers, so they're going to continue gossiping. What's the point? They should sit next to each other. The whole point of the isolation is that he should learn and not to gossip, so that to put him in separate places. So we're going to discuss this a little bit later. What we're going to discuss is who was the person in charge to declare him impure or not impure. It had to be a Kohen, had to be a priest. Now, what happens if the priest was not learned? Because there are 4 different types of white colors that make a person impure. Imagine he wasn't educated. He didn't know the colors at all. He can't tell the difference. So how is he going to declare him if he's pure or impure? So they would bring a man who's a scholar, and he would look at it and would tell the Kohen, "You declare him pure or you declare him impure." So even though a scholar would decide, but his saying could not make him pure or impure, it had to be a Kohen. Doesn't that sound very strange? If the Kohen doesn't know anything, so you bring a scholar, let the scholar say it. But the Maimonides writes down it's a decree of God that only the Kohen can do that. Everything in the Torah has a lesson for us. Why is the Kohen, the priest, chosen to do this? But do you have a Kohen here beside you? You're going to see the holiness of a Kohen now. Why a Kohen was purposely chosen to make somebody impure. So in order to understand that, is the question clear, people? Even if it was ignorant, somebody else had to tell him to make the declaration if he's impure or not. So the answer that they give in short, you say you have to know 2 things. Number one, a Kohen is supposed to know, it's known to, you're a Kohen. What are you hiding, man? Don't hide it. Be proud. There's only one big deal, one tough thing about Kohen. You can't marry any girl you want. You gotta have kosher one, no conversions, all those things. That's the only tough part. But it's worth it. Sure. You get a good girl, no trouble. But anyways, a Kohen actually is known to be a man of chesed. a person that loves to do kindness. The father of all the Kohanim was none other than Aaron HaKohen, right? What did he do? He loved peace so much that he would actually go and hide the truth to make peace between two people. This is one of the places that you're allowed to change the truth. You don't have to say the full truth in order to bring peace between two people. What did he do? Imagine Reuven and Shimon had a fight. So Aaron HaKohen would write to Shimon, run to him, and say, Shimon, you know something? Reuven is so sorry that he had a fight with you. But he really doesn't have the guts to come and say, I'm sorry. Some people have a problem to say sorry. You see him next time, go hug him. He's going to come back to you. But really, Reuven never said that. But he made a lie and he told Shimon that Reuven is sorry. Then before Shimon and Reuven had a chance to see each other, he would run to Reuven and tell Reuven, you know what, really Shimon is sorry that he met you, that he fought with you. And he wasn't really sorry. So when each one met each other, Reuven and Shimon, each one thought that the other person is sorry. So they hugged each other, they became friends. So from there we learned to bring peace between two people, you could actually hide the truth. He was known to be Ish Chesed to such an extent. A Kohen has to love everybody. You know, there is a halacha. How do we say the bracha of the Kohanim? Asher kitshanu v'misotav v'tzivanu. What's the end of it? No, Asher kitashanu v'kedushato shel Aaron. God sanctified us with the sanctification of Aaron, that we should bless the Jews with love. So here's a very interesting question. You know, there's one asked the question, no other mitzvah, you make a blessing, I'm going to do this mitzvah because I want to do it with love. What's the bracha of tefillin? Lehaniach tefillin. Do you say lehaniach tefillin be'ahava? I put on tefillin because I love God. It doesn't matter whether you love God or not, you got to do it. It's better if you love God. When it comes to the bracha of the Kohanim, they make a blessing that God sanctified us with the Kedusha, with the holiness of Aaron, to bless his people with love. They say because this was the entire being of Aaron. He had to love the people. If a Kohen hates somebody in the community, it's dangerous for him to go and bless the people because he's lying. He's saying God commanded us to bless the Jews with love, and if he doesn't love the person, he's lying. So the Gemara says that the Zohar says, it's actually better for the Kohen to walk out than blessing the people if he doesn't like them, because it's dangerous for him to make the bracha when he hates somebody in the congregation. So you see that Aaron is a man that really wants to see positive, good in every single person. That's introduction number one. Introduction number two, leprosy, as we said before, is the worst type of isolation. He's so impure that he can't even sit with another impure person. Basically, he's completely excommunicated. He's excommunicated, that's it. He has no, that means basically doesn't live with any other Jews. This is the worst type of isolation. So now the question is like this. If somebody's going to come and condemn a Jew, that you know you're so bad that you have to be isolated. So not everybody could do that. Imagine I don't like you, right? God forbid. Of course I love you. Imagine I don't like you, right? So I'm looking for an opportunity to make you to do something bad to you. When you do something wrong, I start screaming at you and condemning you. Not because I love you, because I'm trying to get even with you. You get that? Many of us, we have some grudges against somebody. So when I come and, I might include it in religion. I say something, I'm screaming at you because whatever, you didn't put on your kippah today. But really, I'm using it as an excuse to scream at you. So such a person is completely disqualified to go and judge and condemn somebody else, because I'm not doing it from the bottom of my heart. The only person that you really believe when he condemns somebody else is a person that loves that person a lot. He really loves him. And he looks at every angle to exonerate him, to make him, not guilty. If after he looks in every single place and he can't exonerate the person and he has to make him guilty, it's because he had no other choice. The guy was really, really guilty. That's what the Torah says. The only person that is qualified to go and criticize and say you're really impure is only Aaron HaKohen or Kohanim that are his children. Because naturally they love every Jew. For him, it's not easy to come and say you're impure, so get excommunicated from the Jewish community. He's going to find every excuse, every reason, every logic to make this person not impure. So therefore, if at the end he does that because he has not a choice at all, really the guy was a guilty person. It's a lesson for us before I judge somebody else. I have to really look, do I love that person? Am I looking with a positive point of view? Or I have something against the guy. Maybe I'm a judgmental person. I love judging people. Maybe that's why I'm really condemning him. So first you have to become Aaron Akohen. You have to love the person. If you love him, you look at all these positive things, and you still think, yeah, that he's guilty, okay, then you could call him guilty, whatever it is. But even then, it has to be done with love. They say there's a very interesting expression. It says before you, what's the word? Before you condemn or before you criticize somebody, make sure you cut your nails off. It's a very funny expression. But nails hurt. When you cut your nails, there's nothing there to hurt the other person. So it says before you criticize somebody, I have to really look inside myself. Is it that I enjoy hurting that guy? Some people are crazy. They like putting other people down. They actually feel better when they put somebody else down. I have to see really, is it that I want to hurt somebody with my nails? Or really no, I really love the person. In that case, I could definitely, criticize him, not, but out of love, not because, God forbid, I want to judge him in a very bad way. This is basic, that's actually one of the ways that friends could influence somebody. You have seen, sometimes the father can't influence a person, the mother can't influence the child, but the friends can do it. How come friends can do it? They're wiser than the father? I don't know. But I think one of the reasons are because I really feel this friend loves me. If he's telling me something, it's not because he wants to control me, because again, sometimes by mistake, I look at my parents as policemen. I don't see the motherly voice. I don't see the fatherly voice. I see a policeman. But my friend is not my policeman, he helps me. So because I see the voice of love, that's why I accept more from them. By the way, I don't look at my mom as a policeman anymore or policewoman because I'm a father myself. Whatever my mom told me, I tell my kids. When I was a child, oh, okay, please don't tell me what to do. But now that I'm a child and a father at the same time, I'm wiser, hopefully. So I say, my mom didn't mean anything bad. I'm saying the same thing to my kids too. So that is number one that we're going to discuss. Next thing that we're going to learn actually something a lot deeper, but it's very beautiful. If you have any questions, guys, please ask. I hope I didn't bore you. Is it good? Okay, so let's get any questions. We go to the next one. We're going to learn about the portion of the week. This week's parasha is called Tazria, right? And we said Tazria means to give birth. When somebody becomes pregnant, gives birth. But only 8 verses, 8 psukim of the Torah talk about giving birth. The entire parasha talks about leprosy. Somebody gossips, he gets one type of leprosy on the skin. There's another type of leprosy where hair grows, like in the head or in the beard. There's leprosy on the wall of the house. There's leprosy on the clothing. The whole thing talks about leprosy. Now the Gemara says somebody that has leprosy, tzarat, is like a dead person. And what's the logic behind it? Because true life or normal life is when you have a social life. You can't go live in a mountain by yourself. That's not a social life. It's not life. Somebody who gets leprosy, he has to be in isolation. He can't talk to anybody. I'm sorry, that's not a normal life. It's like this. You can't live in isolation. That's why we tell all you guys, please get married. That's one of the reasons, because you can't live isolated. But there's better reason. You know why you get married? That's why you're not getting married. You know why you should get married? First find out the reason, then you get married. Isn't that simple?
What's the reason, Rabbi?
You really want to know the reason?
Yeah.
The real reason why you get married is because God created us to become godly people. Godly person is a giving person because God doesn't need anything. He doesn't need to take anything from us. He has everything. By definition, God means a giver, someone that gives. When we are single people, mostly I only care about myself. I'm a taker, I'm a receiver. Mommy, give me this, mommy, give me that, daddy, give me this. That's why sometimes our parents, they say my kid looks at me as an ATM machine. Because he only wants, he takes money out.
And what if it's just the opposite?
What?
It's the opposite.
The child gives the parents. Yeah, it could be, but normally, I'm saying normally. Normally, it's not that way. I'm saying, yeah, it could be the opposite. There's sometimes that children take care of their parents, or whether the child is a giver, no question about it. But as long as we are single, if I'm not in the mood of being a giver, I just tell my friend, I'm not in your mood today. I don't want to deal with you. But once I get married, can I tell my wife, I'm not in your mood, I'm not your husband today? Can I tell my kid, I'm not in your mood, you're not my child today? It doesn't make sense. You can't do that. You can't say, well, I realize I don't know who I am. So I'm going to let go of you. I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to go somewhere in Taiwan to figure out what kind of a person I am. You should have done this before you got married. You know what I'm saying? You have no choice. You become a giver most of your life. So God made the institution of marriage to teach us that we have to, in order to become godly, you have to be a giver. That's a simple reason. There's also much more simple reason, and that is because Judaism as that continues, you got to bring children in the world that they're going to be good people. So one purpose is to have kids, the other one is not just to have kids, actually to become a godly person. So now you're going to get married?
Yeah, I will.
Because without it, you don't become godly. You're just a receiver. Or most of the time receiver. That's not good.
That's the plan.
I'm sorry that I'm picking on you, but
No, you're good. Don't worry.
you're okay with that?
He's a big receiver.
He's a big receiver? So he's going to become a big giver. When you get married, you're going to become a big giver. But anyway, so going back, Tazria shows on giving birth, which is life. But the entire parasha talks about somebody who has leprosy, which is like a dead person. So why is the name of the parasha the opposite of the concept of the parasha? It doesn't make sense. The parasha should have been called Sarat, leprosy. So actually, to answer that, you see, this is a very, very important thing that we should know. You see, we know that God is a good God. At least we believe so. Makes sense to say that God is good. Any person who's normal, if I have something, I want to share it with you. You don't find too many guys like the Hamas people that just have to go kill. They're abnormal. They're not human beings. I'm sorry that I'm saying it. At least they don't act like humans. But any normal person that is a good person, he has something he shares with somebody else too. So God, who's a symbol of goodness, he only wants to give good. Correct? We say every day, Chanon, Rachon, God is forgiving, God is no merciful. If that's the case, and all these Jewish philosophers ask a question, why is there punishment in the Torah? If God is good, there shouldn't be any punishment. And the Torah uses the word onesh, punishment. You find many philosophers, there's really no punishment, there's consequences. I don't care what name you put on it. There are things that we don't enjoy. Call it consequence, call it punishment, call it whatever you want. But if God is really a symbol of goodness, why is there so many tragedies or so many bad things happening? So one of the answers that they give is, what? One of the answers that they give is if there's a punishment, it seems to be bad, but really it's for the good of the person. Why is it for the good of the person? So, one of the examples that they bring, if God forbid somebody has a growth on his body, God forbid, he has to do surgery. The surgery is very, very painful. It's really painful. But let's say sometimes the person has to amputate a limb, God forbid. If blood doesn't circulate in his toes, he has to cut his toes. It's very, very painful. Are you going to hate the doctor for cutting this guy's toes? Are you going to hate the doctor that did the chemo on this person? He lost all his hair, became weaker. Actually, not only that, you're not going to hate the doctor. If he's a good doctor, obviously, you're going to thank him for prolonging the person's life. Unfortunately, by amputating his toes, he's able to have a more healthy life. By doing chemo, although the guy's going through a lot of trouble, but he's going to have a long. Whatever. My mother had certain cancer many years ago. So when I used to take her to chemotherapy, I don't know how it's today, but when they used to put the injection, like her whole face turned colors, and she would like almost vomit. But looking back, even though she went through the chemo for 2 years, thank God it's 35 years later and she's still living till 120. I mean, it was worth it, whatever it is. Otherwise, it would have killed her. Anyway, so just like we have in medicine that sometimes we go through surgery, but it's for the good of the person. When we do wrong stuff, we create some type of a spiritual, I'm talking about an evil, some type of an impure growth on our neshama, on our soul. There's a certain infection. So when the punishments come or things that are not enjoyable, basically, what is a sin in simple terms? Sin is an illegal pleasure, right? God says we can't have this pleasure. It's illegal. But I have it. So what actually takes away that impurity that the illegal pleasure caused? Suffering. So the suffering is for the good of the person. So really it's from the kindness of God. He's doing the surgery on that person to cleanse whatever all the growth and the bad things that are growing on him. We actually find, imagine there is a person that is so bad that he doesn't deserve to live in this world. He's a danger to society. So there's sometimes that the Torah says there's a death penalty. Sometimes there is.
But God wanted him to be like that, Rabbi.
No, that you can't say. God gave him the temptation to be like that.
So God let go of him.
God gave him the temptation, but He gives him the power to overcome it. You know, one of the examples, I'm going to go off topic. One of the examples that have somebody said, Rabbi, I'm in college, you know, I see so many girls. How could I hold myself back? Very, very decent question. So I told him, imagine this girl has AIDS. Would you have relations with her? Says, no. Says, what's the difference? It's enjoyable. Because when you know the AIDS is going to kill you, you don't care about the enjoyment. Forget about it. The reason why I do a sin, because I don't see the sin as AIDS to my soul. I just see the pleasure. If I would convince my thinking that the sin is a death penalty, it's death because I get cut off from God. So I would hold myself back not to have any sin with somebody that has AIDS. So then the guy said, "Oh, Rabbi, that's very smart." I said, "I hope so. I'm not that smart, but I hope it was the smart thing that I told him." Thank God he's married by now, so he doesn't have that temptation anymore. But he told me it's very hard for me in college. Anyway, so again, God definitely gives the temptation, but He gives us the tools, the brains that if we work on ourselves, it's very difficult, but it's possible to overcome it. Now, let's say somebody that is really so bad that is supposed to get killed. So it says he loses his life in this world, but it's for his goodness to get his life in the world to come. You know what I'm saying? The death itself atones for his sin. Where do we find this? It's a story in the book of Joshua. Over there, it talks about a man when the Jews, took the first city that he captured was Jericho. Jericho was the city that we captured, right? So God says, because that's the first city, any jewelry, any money that's in there, you can't confiscate. It belongs to God. There was one man with the name of Achan. He couldn't hold himself back. He stole 4 expensive things. The Jews didn't watch him. They trusted each other. Next war, the Jews lost the war. We lost 36 people in that war. So Joshua was very worried. Didn't God promise me that He's going to be with me like He was with Moshe Rabbeinu? Why did I lose the war? So God tells him some of the Jews, one Jew sinned. Go find out yourself. So he goes and he finds out it was a man with the name of Achan. So it tells him, you have to get killed. Achur ata ba'olam hazeh. You're cut off in this world. So the Gemara asks, what is he saying? Of course, when you're cut off from this world. He doesn't live in the moon, he's living on earth. So when he gets cut off, he gets killed, he's cut off from this world. So the Gemara says there's a deep thing. He was telling him, even though you're getting killed, you're only getting killed from this world. But in the world to come, you have your share. Because before they got killed, they had to repent. So even somebody that doesn't deserve to live for whatever reason, in the judgment of God, the killing actually is for his benefit to have a share in the world to come. The only problem is that we don't see this in the punishments. We believe so. That's what they taught us. That's what makes sense. Because God is good, He can't just take revenge and kill you. It must be there is something good in there. There's only one punishment in the Torah that we see with our physical eyes is for the good of the person. When somebody speaks Lashon Hara, right? He gossips and he causes separation amongst people. So God says he becomes impure. He has to live in isolation. Why does he live in isolation? Because he gossiped. When you live alone, you can't talk to the walls. I hope not. They were saying anybody that becomes a teacher should go to the kotel first. Why? Because you have to practice to talk to the wall. Students never listen to you. I'm just kidding. No, it's not true. That's one of the jokes they say for teachers. Go to the kotel. I think it's going to hurt if you tell the teacher, did you go to the kotel? Why should I go to the kotel? You got to get used to talking to the wall. It's going to kill the teacher. Anyway, so we see the reason why God makes him separated from everybody else. Because God is telling him, I want you to change your lifestyle. Why are you sitting alone? Because you made 2 people separated from each other. When I come and say, for example, a boy and a girl are dating, I'm going to go to the girl and say, this guy, don't marry him, When he was in high school, he was smoking pot. First of all, who says it's true? And even if it's true, he's not smoking now. You're not supposed to talk about his past. If he's doing the evil from the past, okay, maybe. But if the guy's not doing it, so what did I do? I separated two people that were supposed to get married almost, I destroyed it. So God says, you know what? Your words separate between two people. Sit in isolation, see how it feels. You will learn not to talk bad about anybody else. So we see in this punishment of somebody that got leprosy, we see God's goodness. I'm not separating you because I'm taking revenge. I want you to learn that stop talking bad about people. You get that clear, people? So in this thing, we see that Sarat, the punishment, is not a revenge. It's actually for him to start a new life. Isn't that the meaning of the word Tazriya? What was that question in the beginning? Tazriya means a new life. But when someone gets leprosy, he's dead. Why do you name the parasha Tazriya, getting life? Because the purpose of the guy getting leprosy is for him to start a new life. That's like a new Tazriya. That's what the parasha is called, parasha of Tazriya. But that actually, again, God forbid, I'm not saying, I just want to say one thing, people. God does not need lawyers. If I see another Jew, another human being suffering, I can't say, well, God knows what he's doing, so he deserves the punishment. No. When there's a punishment on me, I can justify the punishment of God on myself because I could find a lot of wrong things that I did that I deserve the punishment. But when I'm looking at somebody else, I'm supposed to sympathize with him. You never say God knows what he's doing, so he deserves the punishment. No. God doesn't need a lawyer. He's the best lawyer for himself. You actually have to defend him and actually sympathize with him. All I'm saying over here is not just to get the idea, how could it be tragedies coming from God? Or at least use that for myself. Why is God punishing me? So I have a choice to say God is a bad God. We were in El Camino Real. There was a guy, his name was Mr. V. He was a very, very nice guy. He actually started the first Jewish club there, a Christian guy. He started the first Jewish club. This was in 2004. So he told me, you know what, I don't believe in God. I said, Mr. V, why don't you believe in God? He says, because where was God when Lenin came, when Stalin came, when Hitler came? If there was a God, it wouldn't allow it to happen. That's why he doesn't believe in God. So these are very serious questions and actually hurts a person. But at least it gives us an idea that to our eyes, it seems to be like a punishment, an evil thing. I still don't know what was good in October 7th. And I don't want to know. Because if I do know what's good in it, then I won't be a human being. We get the answer after 120 years. But definitely we have to know that God had a reason. I'm going to ask him, I'm going to tell him he's not fair for doing it. As a human being, I could complain to God. Because in my eyes, it's not normal. What did a small, wonderful pregnant woman do? What did a baby do in the stomach? That this idiot goes and cuts the stomach open to take the baby out. What did that 6 months old baby do? That I put him in an oven to get cooked. Or this kid that just turned a year old, there was 9 months old kid or 6 months, the ginger hair. What did he do wrong? That he's not even getting his milk to drink. I don't know. But definitely, after 120 years after Mashiach comes, definitely God has a reason why he did it. And he owes it to us to answer why he did it. But at least in our personal lives, if we go through challenges, we have to know it's for our good. Get stronger. Don't think God hates you. God doesn't hate you. There's a reason why he's doing it. And after 120s, we're going to find out. I'm going to finish just with one of the, there was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, Rabbi Huda Yukusi Halberstam. He lost 11 of his kids in World War II and his wife. He promised when I was in the concentration camp, God, if you save me, I promise if I'm going to go to the land of Israel, whatever I'm going to, I don't know if he knew he was going to go to Israel. I'm going to make a hospital to save lives. I think the hospital is it in Nahariya? It's called Laniado Hospital. It's still there. You Google it, you see it. I don't know if it's Netanya or Nahariya. I think it's in Netanya. It's in Netanya. He made that hospital, kept his promise. He made that hospital, and many people have been saved. So one time a reporter came and asked him, do you have questions against God or questions to God regarding World War II? He said, I do have it. But if I'm going to ask God, he's going to tell me, come up here, I'm going to answer you. I'd rather stay here and serve God. That's what he said. And he lived a long life. He lived like into his 90s. The answers are there, but we're here to serve God. Anyways,